Counter-Strike is an inexplicably undefeatable boss fight for any studio wishing to enter the first-person shooter genre. It is of course unfortunate to all of its competitors, however, that the literal only thing to have ever killed CSGO or even come close to matching its prosperity is CSGO2. And oh boy did Valve create the same game. Now I'm not quite sure why anyone expected CSGO2 to be a new game, but apparently they did. I'm however here to tell you that this is nothing more than a fancy new coat of paint alongside less content. But vastly superior content thanks to an absolute ton of physics upgrades related to the porting of CSGO to Source 2. That's right, it's not called CSGO2 because it's the second game. It has that title because it's a port to a newer, better engine called Source 2. Remember ladies and gentlemen, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. CSGO has remained at the top of the FPS genre for just over an entire decade with practically no updates to the core gameplay experience. The only time its throne was ever even close to being threatened was not by Valorant's release, but by PUBG's launch.
What the f***?
Yeah, I don't really understand that either. I mean seriously, how on earth was PUBG so unfathomably popular at launch? Whilst nearly every other franchise in the FPS space has consistently changed sequel to sequel, Counter-Strike has simply existed. And while this may frustrate some iPad kids sitting at home watching TikToks, a movie and playing Fortnite at the same time because Instagram Reels turn their brains into mush, for the overwhelming majority of Europeans, this has meant nothing but pure unfiltered glory for 11 years straight. Whilst the Halo community eats itself from the inside about how much better the nostalgia company's Halo games were, or how much better Halo 5 is, in an excruciatingly similar way to how the Star Wars fandom constantly obsessively bickers about how much better the originals, or the prequels, or the sequels were. CSGO fans haven't even had the opportunity to fill my Twitter timeline with such childish and annoying things. Even though you can see quite a few slightly confused individuals such as my good friend the Actman complain about the removal of CSGO, in reality all Valve has to do to quote unquote fix the problem of CSGO being locked to a demo branch inside of Counter-Strike 2 is offer a classics graphics option, because they're practically the exact same game.
Corporate needs you to find the differences between this picture and this picture. They're the same picture.
Not to mention it does come along with some amazing updates. But do you know what I love more than all of the updates featured in Counter-Strike 2? Today's sponsor, Dungeon Hunter 6, a brand new continuation of the franchise from GOAT Games, continuing to feature the classic hack and slash experience you all love, as a free-to-play mobile ARPG with a unique hero collector feature. Play as a bounty hunter with multiple class options to not only slay bosses, but also make them serve you as you progress. It features not only PvE, but also PvP game modes, including real-time guild wars and guild raids for its multiplayer experience, which is why I, of course, am inviting all of you to use the QR code on screen, the pinned link in the comment section, or the link in the description to gain a $50 starter pack containing 10 summoning scrolls, 1 SSR lieutenant, and 1 accessory pack. Most importantly, use your game account to enter the launch Lucky Spin event for free to win great prizes like the iPhone 15 Pro Max, PS5, and more starting October 15th. Check out the description for the link to download the game and for more details, along with using the QR code on screen if you are viewing from a PC, to start your dungeon hunting crusade against over 100 uniquely designed bosses, and with the ability to turn into a catcher and stealth missions inspired by their own office companion. What's not to love? And what are these amazing updates featured in CSGO 2? Well, your skins are prettier, meaning you'll continue to chase that ever-escaping unachievable high from getting your first dragon lore.
Boom! Yeah!
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Holy shit!
After spending tens of thousands of dollars on in-game items that aren't tangible. And thank God, Valve did not speed up the gameplay with the Source 2 port, even though the entire industry is constantly trying to appeal to kids with undiagnosed ADHD who need Subway Surfer gameplay to be played in theaters next to Oppenheimer to actually be able to pay attention. Maybe this is a placebo thing, but I'm almost certain CS2 plays far slower than Global Offensive ever did. and I mean much slower. In fact, I'm 99% sure it is due to the changes to smoke grenades. No longer are they pretty much just goofy little PNG images. No. They're now fully volumetric. For the uninformed, this is not common in the industry at all, even though it should be. And even though it is the actual perfect way to evolve games going into the future. Hell, I don't think I've ever seen smoke physics as advanced as this anywhere. Instead of the smoke being a glorified PNG, it has actual physics now. It will fill whatever space it is in perfectly. You can also shoot through it so that you can see the other side, and you can even use a grenade to blow away the smoke temporarily. In your other hand, you have a beautiful updated version of the Molotov cocktail, with fire effects are magnificent enough to turn a pitbull named Cupcake from a toddler devouring beast to the most angelic pyromane one can meet in Team Fortress 2. The glass in the game got updated as well. Most people certainly won't care, but I think it's pretty cool how the glass now actively reacts to not only where it has been damaged and from what direction it receives damage from, but also how it was damaged. If you were to shoot the glass in the top right corner of a window, then it shatters from that point. And if you were to use a grenade, then the glass will react perfectly via being pushed outwards in the direction of the blast. I'm sure to the vast majority of you watching, this sounds like a nothing burger, but I can safely say this is not an attention to detail most developers put into their games, especially in the first-person shooter genre, even though they really should. Alongside all these more apparent alterations, Valve upgraded the blood splattering. It now takes into account all the same things glass does, and every shot will result in as close to a unique effect as possible, instead of caving to industry norms and adding in stupid hit markers. A feature that nullifies the sound design of guns in almost all modern shooters in order to give you a little hit of dopamine during the first couple of times you hear the hit marker sound effect. Unfortunately for that design, it doesn't work very well. Eventually you just drown out the noise. So I am beyond glad to see Valve more than often refuse to follow the norm. And I almost forgot to mention how the water physics also got upgraded. It's now on par with every other game released in the past 5 years. Well done, Valve. It is not all sunshine and rainbows, unfortunately, because some of the updates really aggravate me. You know that insanely satisfying sound effect which played every time you dinked someone? Gone. Reduced to atoms. And it is replaced by the sound I imagine gets made when you hold up a mic to a bug being squished by the oddly terrifying toddler in kindergarten that you just know will end up as a serial killer. Now why they made this change, I have no idea, because it did not need to be changed, and the new sound effect is simply infinitely worse. At least to me, there is nothing satisfying about the new one compared to the original. Valve also completely overhauled the buy phase at the start of matches, and I low-key hate it. For some reason, it now uses loadouts. I guess we had to sacrifice at least one mechanic to modern gaming. Maybe I'm just being dumb here, but even still, I do not like how much this limits the sandbox compared to Global Offensive's offering. It merely seems overly restrictive for no real reason. Instead of having 21 weapon slots like before, you now are limited to 15. That is no small change, and it is not one I personally mind all too much, but I also don't like it. The reason I ultimately don't mind it all too much is simply because, if we're being totally truthful, it's not like anyone didn't have a go-to loadout when playing before the change. I do still wish the option was there to swap between the two. I likewise do adore the fact that even though this is a fairly huge change for a game like Counter-Strike, where the developers have done nothing to alter the core experience outside of bug fixing for essentially a decade, it really does not affect the core moment-to-moment gameplay. If you die in CSGO2, you are 9 out of 10 times the cause. Just like how in CSGO, if you died, it was usually your fault. This is not your average AAA experience where someone can whip out a black hole out of nowhere and decimate the entire enemy team out of pure luck. If you die, it is a lesson, not a remarkably irritating and stupid punishment created by a company trying to drip feed you a dopamine rush. Whereas a title like Overwatch 2 promised a new game and then pulled the rug on everything they stated made it a new game, Valve never marketed Counter-Strike 2 as anything more than an engine swap, and that's why the only disappointing thing about the game is how we have less maps to enjoy for now. Over time, that will become untrue, however, and with the next operation potentially coming in January, the future has never been brighter for the Counter-Strike franchise. If you ignore the fact that it's now called CSGO2, which means we'll never see see another Counter-Strike game. After all, Valve cannot count to 3. Just look at Team Fortress 2. I'm still stupidly praying for that game to get a Source 2 port, even though it never will. Although much to my displeasure, I am sure the future for Team Fortress 2 will never look quite as good as it does for Counter-Strike right now.